Welcome to the 74th episode of I Wrote This News. Today is Tuesday, March 22, 2022. Halfway to halfway, and here's a bit of news for you. Story number 1, here comes the judge. Republicans are intensifying their attacks on Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson after weeks of publicly reserving judgment on President Joe Biden's Supreme Court nominee, before historic hearings on the first black woman to be put forward as a justice. Missouri Senator and Toy Story figurine come to life, Josh Hawley, claimed his review of Jackson's judicial record had determined that she had been lenient in sentencing some sex offenders and those convicted of possessing child pornography. He also suggested that, as a member of the U.S. Sentencing Commission, she worked to reduce penalties for those caught with child pornography. At the same time, Senator and Ninja Turtle wannabe Mitch McConnell, the minority leader, has doubled down on his suggestion that Jackson's experience as a public defender could influence her view of the law and lead her to favor criminal defendants. McConnell claimed, quote, "Her supporters look at her resume and deduce a special empathy for criminals. I guess that means that government prosecutors and innocent crime victims start each trial at a disadvantage." Defenders of Jackson argue that these attacks amount to a smear campaign, noting that Jackson's sentences in pornography cases were at or above recommendations from probation officials and comparable to what other federal judges were handing down under guidelines that were considered badly outdated. They also point to her strong support from law enforcement groups and prominent police officials. As for the criticism of the Sentencing Commission, the White House and Senate Democrats note that the sentencing recommendations it made during Jackson's tenure were approved unanimously by the bipartisan panel, with members appointed by presidents of both parties and ultimately accepted by Congress. Indeed, one Republican-appointed member of the panel who served with Jackson, Judge William Pryor Jr., confirmed that the recommendations of the commission were almost uniformly supported by all its members as the panel sought to eliminate disparities and improve sentencing. He said, quote, "We worked by consensus, and that is the tradition of the Sentencing Commission. Virtually all of our votes were unanimous and data-driven." All of this apparently would be a shock to Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, whose recent comments in a speech he gave suggested that, if we're not careful, the court could someday become politicized. That someday is clearly already upon us. Story number 2, we're in this together, Clarence. Justice Clarence Thomas has been hospitalized since Friday after experiencing flu-like symptoms, according to a statement from the Supreme Court on Sunday evening. Thomas was being treated with intravenous antibiotics at Sibley Memorial Hospital in Washington for an infection, the statement said. His symptoms are abating, he is resting comfortably, and he expects to be released from the hospital in a day or two, the statement said. In related news, a microbe announced that it had been hospitalized since Friday after experiencing Clarence Thomas-like symptoms, including leaning hard to the right and having a hard time seeing things clearly. March 22nd is the 81st day of the year in the Gregorian calendar. 284 days remain until the end of the year. It's also the earliest day on which Easter Sunday can fall. The last time that happened was in 1818, and it won't happen again until 2285. Today is also World Water Day, an annual United Nations observance that highlights the importance of fresh water. The day is used to advocate for the sustainable management of freshwater resources. Now it's time for On This Date in History. On this date in 1312, Pope Clement V dissolves the Order of the Knights Templar via his Vox in Excelso. The mission, history, and demise of the order are fascinating. You can learn more at wikipedia.com. 1638, Anne Hutchinson is expelled from Massachusetts Bay Colony for religious dissent. Hutchinson was a Puritan spiritual advisor and religious reformer. Her strong religious convictions were at odds with the established Puritan clergy in the Boston area, and her popularity and charisma helped create a theological schism that threatened the Puritan religious community in New England. Her theology of direct personal revelation opposed the belief that the Bible was the final authority concerning divine revelation, which was basic to the Reformed doctrines held by the majority of English settlers at that time. She also adopted the view that works, behavior, and personal growth are not valid demonstrations of a person's salvation. She also espoused some views that were more radical, devaluing the material world and suggesting that a person can become one with the Holy Spirit. She embraced mortalism, the belief that the soul dies when the body dies, and she saw herself as a prophetess. She had prophesied that God was going to destroy England, and she prophesied during her trial that God would destroy Boston. She was eventually tried and convicted, then banished from the colony with many of her supporters. 1873, the Spanish National Assembly abolishes slavery in Puerto Rico. 1894, the Stanley Cup ice hockey competition is held for the first time in Montreal, Canada. 1960, Arthur Leonard Shallow and Charles Hardtowns received the first patent for a laser. 1997, 14-year-old Tara Lipinski becomes the youngest women's world figure skating champion. Celebrating birthdays today are super rich televangelist Pat Robertson, who turns 92. Actor William Shatner, he turns 91. Actress Mae Britt, politician Orrin Hatch, actor Emmett Walsh, physicist George Edward Alcorn Jr., poet Billy Collins, screenwriter Eric Roth, super author James Patterson, director Andrew Lloyd Webber, musician Stephanie Mills, actor Matthew Modine, ballerina Deborah Bull, comedian Keegan-Michael Key, actress Reese Witherspoon, and American author Edie Hirsch, he turns 94 today. Happy birthday to all of them, and if your birthday is today, a very happy birthday to you as well. By the way, if you or someone you know is having a birthday and would like us to announce it on the show, leave us a voice message or send an email. The links are in the show notes. Today's news was brought to us by Yahoo News, Politico, and the website guaranteed to break your fever, Wikipedia. If you have a comment or a question about anything you've heard today, or if you have a suggestion, please send us a note at IWTN, all one word, at thatradioshow.com. That email address one more time is IWTN, all one word, at thatradioshow.com.
One more thing, if this podcast sounds a little funny, that's because it's also an experiment. All of the vocals were generated using AI technology. Hopefully the show will sound different and better as the tech improves and as we improve at using it. I'm Bob Meese, hoping you have an amazing day. We'll get together again soon.